Okay.
Okay, we are live with Mark, and I don't want to mess this up. Kirsten, and the last name Krikke?
Yeah.
Krikke.
You got
Kirsten. Yeah, I was messing up Kirsten's name. I kept saying Kristen because I know a Kristen, but Kirsten. So thanks for being here, guys. And before we dive into the whole Airbnb stuff and your story, we were just talking about macro, joking about macro a little bit. The UK bonds are currently just basically blowing up. The Bank of England said basically, hey, all you pensions, if you're holding all these bonds, you better just dump them and you have 3 days to do it.
Yeah.
And what happened is people listened and started dumping them. The yields started spiking up to where they were about 2 weeks ago or so, or last week. Things are happening so fast, I can't even keep track. 2 weeks ago. And now the Bank of England has come out and said, well, you know what, maybe we'll keep buying them and maybe, it won't be a temporary thing. And, it's just a mess. The whole macro situation is a mess. So Mark, I don't think you and Kirsten weren't at the last Your Life, Your Terms event that we had, but we gave this big economic update where the feedback that I had was that, okay, that was a little dark. It was a little dark, but we needed to hear it. That was, if I was to sum up the feedback, that was a little dark, but we needed to hear it. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. So anyway.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah.
All across
You seem to keep track of this kind of stuff. Why is that, Mark? What's the
just
interest?
An interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just learning, right? Kind of like my second education, I guess.
How did you guys end up with the whole, getting into real estate? Before we get into the book, what's the journey like to get into real estate? Where does that come from for both of you? Kirsten, is that something you initiated? Mark initiated?
No, it wasn't me. In my 20s, I was always a renter. Never thought about buying a house. Kind of in the back of my mind, I wanted to, but I had no idea where to start. And I think it was a psychological barrier, really, that's stopped me from buying anything. And then I met Mark and we got engaged, and that's what engaged couples do, right? You buy your first home together. And he was the one that kind of pushed for that. And
because you were always renting, does that come from your family? Was your family renting growing up?
No, my parents own their own house. But I think I felt a little bit lost in my 20s. I didn't really know which continent I wanted to live on. I had lived in Europe for a little bit and worked there, come back to Canada. And I was thinking of maybe going back to study in Amsterdam. And then I met Mark, so things changed. So
Did you love it in Europe?
I did.
Yeah.
I really did.
Why do you think? What was it about Europe that you loved?
I think things are a little. Well, maybe this is just an outsider, but maybe a little less hectic than here. People really take the time to relax, to enjoy their downtime. Having a cup of coffee on the run. They don't really do the drive-throughs. Mm-hmm. You sit down at a cafe and you have a coffee with a friend. So that was really nice.
Sometimes I wonder if that comes from the density of Europe. We're pretty spread out here, but whenever you go to some of these European cities, you realize, wow, like they're really densely populated in some of these urban centers. And the advantage to that is all the cafes are packed and your friends are like around the corner.
Yeah. You're very
so you
close.
can kind of stumble into somebody and have a coffee. Whereas I feel like here, if I reach out to you guys like, hey, Kirsten and Mark, you want to meet up for a coffee? It's like, okay, well, Thursday at 2, we'll meet at like QEW in Dorval for like, at the coffee shop there. If traffic's okay, like it's a nightmare. Yeah. Whereas there you can kind of just stumble into people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just the density of the place.
Yeah, it could be.
But I really enjoy that too, sitting down and chatting and stuff. And then you met Mark, decided this is the guy for you. Is that what happened?
Yes, that's what happened. I was like, I guess I'm not going to Europe.
The clouds parted and the sun came out and the angels started singing.
Kind of.
Yeah, okay.
There was a rainbow.
And this is the guy, and he convinced you to get into real estate and buy your...
Not really. We didn't really think, hey, let's get into real estate. We just thought, well, this is what you do. We're going to be married. We're hoping to have a family. So then you buy a family home. And he had said all along, if we do buy a home, it has to have a basement apartment. That was his one thing on his wish list.
Mark, where did that come from? Why are you saying that?
Just the desire to have a little bit of income, I think, and take care of the mortgage, right?
Growing up, did your family do that? Was that something? No? Okay.
No.
So you just knew having a second stream of income somehow in the property was going to be an advantage to you.
Yeah.
Right.
That was just in the back of my head.
Okay. And then you guys get that property, and then what? You have 4 kids.
Yes.
So you start producing offspring at this point. And that keeps you busy. And then eventually you get into the world of investing in real estate. Is that how this goes?
Well, we got into Airbnb first.
Okay.
Right? We love to travel. Like Kirsten obviously did a lot of traveling before we got married. And I did a little bit, but we enjoyed it. And we discovered Airbnb on our travels. Like, what a much better way to travel and to stay somewhere instead of in a hotel, right? Especially traveling with like a baby and then another baby. And so when we got home, I thought, you know what, we could maybe do this here. And like, we didn't do any research or any market analysis or whatever. Just like, it should work, right? Let's,
Love it. That's the best way to begin. Yes.
Yeah.
This is how we do things.
Yeah.
Just
Go.
do it.
Good. You made a decision.
Yeah.
Love it.
And yeah, because we had, a good renter and then a bad renter. I'm just like, we could keep doing this, but good renter, he stayed for a year. And because he was good and had his stuff together, he bought a house. So then he was out, right? So, okay, great. Turnover. You can raise the rent a little bit, but rented to someone else, and that didn't work out at all, right? So we got stuck with, no rent and a big mess. And then at that point, we're like, let's just try Airbnb. And I was working full time, and it didn't really fall on me that much. It was mainly on Kirsten to take care of the cleaning and like the booking and just everything. But that it's just a little 1-bedroom apartment. So like it's Hamilton Mountain, right? Typical bungalow, 3-bedroom. Half the basement was unfinished, half was finished with a 1-bedroom, small little apartment. But Kirsten decorated it, made it nice. I mean, in the beginning,
It was pretty sparse.
Sure.
We didn't know what we were doing.
Sure.
We had a futon that were like, well, I guess that would work, and a bed that somebody had given to us.
yeah.
It was just very minimal, but we didn't really know any better. We're like, well, we'll see what happens.
What year was this? When did you buy this?
We bought the house in 2012
Okay.
and then started Airbnb.
14 maybe?
Yeah, 14, 15.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the early days in Canada where you could just like
Do
put a
whatever.
mattress in a space and rent it out and you'd be good, right?
So back then, who started renting this place on
That's-
Airbnb? Because
that
I
is
would have
exactly
never.
what I thought.
Yeah, like I would have never thought. Now I'm open for it
Yeah.
to it because everyone has proven me wrong on Airbnb because we have people renting in all parts of Ontario that I never thought would be possible. Like there's no who's renting an Airbnb like out in the middle of nowhere, but people are renting cabins in the middle of forests through Airbnb and short-term rentals and that kind of stuff. Who was renting back then from you guys?
Yeah.
Well, so we realized like much later that Hamilton is right between Toronto and Niagara Falls. And if you're a tourist, you're coming to Canada, where do you want, like if you're coming to Ontario, where do you want to visit? You want to visit Toronto and Niagara Falls. So you could stay in Toronto or Niagara Falls and do a long trip either way, or Hamilton's right in the middle. So that's a sweet spot. So mainly in the beginning, we were just doing short-term stays, and it was tourists. I think that
Really?
was the bulk
Yeah.
of it, right?
And short-term
lot of-
stays were how short? A weekend or a week?
Yeah, about a weekend, a couple of days, a couple of nights. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, sorry, go on, Mark. Go ahead.
No, I just, that little apartment, like that is our best performer to date out of anything that we've owned or managed. It was ridiculous how much money that thing made. Like, I think, did it cover the mortgage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1-bedroom apartment.
And it wasn't a fancy.
Yeah, you've
Perfect.
made that clear. Futon.
Yeah.
You threw it in the middle of the room and
We
said,
did-
good luck.
we
Here's a
made
little
upgrades.
shampoo. You just threw a shampoo bottle in the middle of the bed. Here you go.
We did do upgrades, but yeah, we didn't have the money
Sure.
initially.
Yeah.
And then the bathroom was outdated and old and kind of, but people didn't really seem to mind too much as long as it was clean. I made sure that it was very clean and tried to anticipate what people might need if they're traveling. So making sure that all of like the bedside lamps have USB ports so you can plug your phone in. Anything that you would need from home, it was there.
And you found when doing Airbnbs, those little details mattered?
I think so. Yeah, I think we had a lot of positive responses. People saying this was the best Airbnb we've ever stayed in, which always blew my mind. I'm like, really? My one little bedroom basement?
in Hamilton,
in
on the
Hamilton.
Hamilton Mountain.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that would surprise me then.
Yeah.
Too. Okay. So then this is something you decide you're just going to keep doing.
Yes. So this is Mark. Mark's always telling me, hey, I have an idea. And then I get worried.
So then you have more than, I don't know what your Airbnb lives look like right now. Then you have more.
We have.
Well, so we eventually bought another bungalow on the mountain, and the intent was really to long-term rent. I mean, as far as Kirsten knew.
That was what I had said. Mark's like, well, we're going to buy an investment property, which I already thought was like, oh, that's crazy, but okay. And then he's like, and I said, okay, we can do that, but we're going to rent it long term, because running one Airbnb out of my own basement is one thing. Running two more that, down the street, it was close by, but
because you were going to buy that, you were going to buy that and then have it as 2 units and do Airbnb in each. And sorry, before we get into that, why did you say it was when he said we're going to buy investment property? Why did you say that was crazy?
I think because growing up, that was something that my parents never did. They never invested in real estate. You buy your family home and you try to pay off the mortgage as fast as you can. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what I grew up with.
We all did.
He told me, well, I think we should maybe refinance our family home. I was like,
you're a maniac.
No.
Excuse me. What are you doing with our family here?
Yeah.
We have kids to feed.
Yes.
You're talking about buying other property.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. So then you go down this path. He convinces you through his powers of persuasion and psychological influence.
Can you say no to this?
We got to talk about the beard in a second, but so he convinces you long-term is not the way to go with the rental and do Airbnb.
He did agree with me. Yeah, okay, we'll do the long-term. But I think he had ulterior motives the whole time. We had found a potential tenant for the upstairs, but that had fallen through at the last minute. And Mark said, well, you know what? Let's just rent it. Let's just furnish it anyways. We'll rent it out short-term, and then we'll see if we do long-term. That was 4 years ago. So we just kept on Airbnb-ing it. But I learned a lot of lessons along the way that cleaning it myself and doing all the laundry myself is just not feasible.
So how do you do that now? You found people?
Yeah, we had to build systems.
Okay, can you map out what are some of those systems that you've needed in that one? And I want to ask you about the types of people who are renting out this property in a second on this Airbnb, but what are some of those systems that you've needed?
The cleaning is probably the biggest one. And with Airbnb, it doesn't matter if your bathroom's not updated, for instance, or if you don't have the fanciest of coffee makers. If it's clean, that's the most important. So finding a good cleaner. So that's what we did. Because I was cleaning it on my own. It was just too much, especially the laundry. So then
did you have tight turnover as well, or did you have some days between?
Initially I did have some very tight turnover.
Okay, so then
I've changed now.
So then you have young kids, and then you have a tight turnover. You have to get in there, do the laundry, remake the beds, re-put the shampoo bottles in the washroom and that kind of stuff. The Keurig coffee and the coffee machine kind of thing.
And I wasn't really
helpful.
No, because I worked long hours and I would do handyman stuff.
Yeah.
And
is that what you're doing right now? Do you do handyman stuff?
Yeah, I still do.
In my mind, you have AV. It was also, AV stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've pretty much wound that down. There's still a couple of long-term jobs that I'm taking care of, but now I'm devoted to the property management and investing and
cool.
The book. And
awesome.
Else, right?
Okay, so cleaning, and then how did you do that? You advertised on Kijiji maybe for people?
It was word of mouth, kind of people that I knew. I tried a couple of cleaners. And then you kind of eventually find cleaners that are a good fit. And you kind of have to educate them too. This is not just something that you can go in, clean maybe a part of the house and then clean another part of the house, the following week. It has to be clean.
Thoroughly, the whole thing. You're basically running a hotel.
Yeah, so that's what I tell them. And then they're also my eyes and ears. So I have checklists, like you need to go in and tell me if there's anything broken. Tell me if something's not working, or if you've noticed something out of place, or if that needs looking at, because we need to go in there then and fix those things before the next guests come in. So they've gotten really good at that. Telling me if I need to buy consumables to replenish, like your shampoo and your dishwashing soap and all that sort of thing. So we've got that kind of down pat now. And the cleaners will do the laundry on site as they clean. So that's made the biggest difference.
Oh, wow. So they're doing it right on throw it all in the washing machine, dry it, and then re-put it out.
Yeah, we'll have several sets of linens, so they can make the beds before the old linens are washed and dried. And then by the time they're done cleaning, the stuff that's in the dryer can be put back in the closet.
Okay, so
Yeah.
cleaning is a big
But
process.
that is the biggest.
That's the biggest one. What are the other? Cleaning comes to me as the main process. What are the other processes you need? Key drop off. You have a system for
Yes,
that.
we
Okay.
do.
Using
Yeah.
what are you doing?
We don't
Lock
have
boxes? Or?
keys. We don't. I don't
So it's
even
all
like the lock boxes.
Okay, so you're just
Yeah.
granting access remotely.
You can do that. A lot of hosts have done that, and one of the places that we co-host have those where they will just get a code every time. But even that we find can be a bit tricky if your Wi-Fi is not working, or things always have a way of not working, right? So we try to make it as simple as we can. So we just have the locks with the codes on it.
Okay, and that works the
Yeah, that
best.
seems to work very well. Nobody
Okay.
can lose keys.
Yeah, what do you mean with the one that you co-host?
We also will co-host for other hosts.
How does that work?
So we'll join up. So I have an Airbnb account.
And you put it into a pool?
Yeah, we'll have shared access. So another host will invite me to be their co-host through Airbnb, and then I will have access to their listing.
Oh, got
So
it.
we can kind of work together.
Huh.
Yeah.
And that's the advantage to you is you just have more to offer.
Yes. Yeah.
So-
Experience. And then we're also local to the Airbnbs. So a lot of our clients live in Toronto, for instance, and they've bought houses in Hamilton and they want an Airbnb, but they can't go to Hamilton every time there's a problem.
Got it. So you take over as the
Yeah.
co-host for those properties.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, so some of them we just fully host.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
under
Got
our
it.
account, and that's it. They have nothing to do with it, really, the
Got
owner, other than receiving a
So kind of
check.
like they're hiring you to take care of all of this stuff for them.
So you've got either the
You see how
full
little
host
I know
method,
about Airbnb?
or or you've got the co-host where the owner wants to still have their fingers in the pie a little bit or have a little bit of control. And it's not a bad method, because let's say you wanted to Airbnb a place. It's probably best for you to set up an account under your name so that you maintain control of that. And then we can still run the whole thing for you, but you still have access to it. It's still your account, and you could potentially sell that with the house, right? Whereas if it's under our account, which some people are fine with, that listing stays with us. And if they ever sell the house, then the listing kind of dies. Right, because it's under our account. And
Got
not
it.
a
So
way to
there's
transfer.
no history. So you're not building up reviews on the property, and you don't have that. And that's absolutely an asset to you. The
Yes.
history of the property, if you were getting good reviews on it and things.
Yeah, it's becoming more of a thing now, right? In the States, they're a little further ahead with Airbnb, so that's definitely part of the value of a property is if you have an active Airbnb listing. Canada, we're a little bit behind, so we don't really
never
see
thought-
that very much when
yeah.
people are selling homes.
Huh.
But
So
it's-
if you have good reviews on your property through Airbnb, that's actually a benefit when selling the property. I mean, of course it is. I never really thought about that. We just visited friends. Some of Nick's friends become mine as well, but in I think it's St. Augustine is how you pronounce it, just south of Jacksonville there. And it's a really nice, like kind of almost like a historic little city pocket there. Have you guys know the
I've
area?
heard of it.
Okay.
Ben.
And they run a bunch of Airbnbs out there. And I could just see, it just seems so normal there. I mean, they do seem a lot more comfortable with Airbnb, or it's just, people are coming and dropping in, using these properties. They have systems. It just seems like part of the culture almost of the area. Whereas here, I feel like it's still, I don't know, people are trying to figure it out. Is it right? Not right? What community allows it? What are the bylaws? All that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, but I never thought of that. He has a ton of excellent reviews. So if he ever sells one of those properties, we actually stayed in one of them, and they maintain it like it was immaculate. And if he sells it and it has all these reviews with the property, I guess that's a huge benefit. I didn't get that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not just
for someone who's doing short-term rentals.
Yeah. No, of course. I got it. Okay. So then you co-host some stuff. The cleaning is a big one. The keys, they get in remotely. What else? Is there anything to do with mail, garbage? What about garbage? Garbage is done by the cleaning as well?
It can be. It usually falls on me, just because the checkout dates don't always align with the garbage night pickup. So that means
where's the garbage put?
We'll just have it in bins with secure lids so that the raccoons can't get at it. If I have a guest that's staying maybe a week or two, I'll ask them to put the garbage by the road. If not, then I'm just going out there and grabbing garbage.
Okay. And then maintenance, things like grass and snow removal.
Yeah.
What about that?
So we'll get companies hired to do that.
Hired, take care of the
Yeah,
grass,
everything.
snow removal.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay, a handyman request comes in, you can handle that. Mark can step in
Yes.
and handle that. So you kind of have that covered. What else am I missing? Insurance. You can get insurance on this. Declare it Airbnb, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, you absolutely have.
Better declare that it's Airbnb.
Yeah.
I remember when we got into student rentals and some people were kind of bragging to Nick and I. They're like, oh my gosh, we save so much on the rental insurance because we just do it as a straight rental. And we're like, are you freaking crazy? It's a student rental. You better declare that thing as a student rental. So Airbnb, you can get insurance
Yeah,
for these
short term.
things.
Used to, like when we started, you couldn't in Canada. Now you can. And we always tell people if you're starting it up, absolutely get the insurance. Not necessarily because guests are going to trash your place. That's never happened to us. But let's say you have a fire or a flood or something and your insurance company finds out that you've been running it as a short-term rental, you're in breach of contract and they can deny your claim.
Screwed. Yeah.
Nothing to do with it being a short-term rental, but they'll if they can deny you.
Yeah, we have some
chance they
investors very long time, probably started working with us in like 2007 and it hadn't seen them in a few years. They were just at this past event and they had a house burned down completely and the tenants were putting in a water softener. So they were kind of using the blowtorch to do something. I think it was the insulation that caught fire or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Whole house burnt down. Everybody's fine.
Oh, man.
But luckily they had the proper insurance on it and, everything was covered. I think it was State Farm, which is now Desjardins, put the tenants up in a hotel, paid for the rebuild, did it all. And just thankfully they had the proper, insurance and had it as like a rental property and not like their primary place of residence or something like that. Okay. So you can get insurance. What other systems then am I missing? We've covered insurance, maintenance, access to the property, cleaning. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, most of it is, as with long-term rentals, preventative or done up front, right? So like with a long-term rental, if you vet your tenants properly, we good?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. I'm just
Okay.
Yeah. We're good. We're good.
If you vet your tenants properly because we also manage a few long-term rentals, right? If you vet them properly, you get rid of all the headaches that you're going to face later on, which we learned the hard way, right?
So what were some of those mistakes? Like what?
Well, like not vetting a tenant, like I got a buddy who wants to live, needs
Move
a place
in.
to live. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me some
bad
money.
idea.
Give me some money and welcome. Here are the
Yeah.
keys. Yeah. Okay.
Eventually the money stops, right? So yeah, with, now that we're doing it for other people, we need to be much more rigorous and systematized to properly vet tenants, right? So like all the stuff that you guys have talked about. So if you get a good tenant, then you're golden, right? And we have a number of those properties where we just basically go there quarterly to do the inspection, and that's all we got to do. Whereas other properties you can run into, we've heard all the horror stories. So same thing applies to Airbnb. Make sure you have all your settings set correctly so that you attract the right kind of guests.
What are some of those settings?
Well, so the one rule of thumb we use is no one-night stays. We kind of learned that the hard way.
Because that's just a party.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not always, but you got one-night stays, local guests, and last-minute bookings. So if you have all three of those, that's a party. If you have two of those, it's probably a party or something bad.
Okay.
One of those, you kind of...
So one night
do a
booking,
little bit
local
more work.
guest, and what was the third?
Last minute.
Last minute. Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
Right? Because what does somebody who lives in Hamilton want to rent our place, which is just like a bungalow or a basement apartment or whatever? Why do they want to rent it last minute for one night?
So in Airbnb,
What do
you
you
can
think?
toggle all those settings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like just that, avoiding those three things avoids a ton of headaches. And people will get worried because I don't have bookings and, I have one night here I could fill in. For us, it seems like more hassle than it's worth, right? Especially with a tight turnaround for cleaning. You got to get the cleaner in there or do it, sometimes you end up going yourself because the cleaner can't make it or the laundry doesn't get done. Like it's a lot of hassle. And then if the guest leaves a mess, it's even worse because now you got somebody else checking in a couple hours and you're trying to fix stuff or trying to,
Nightmare.
you're not,
Okay. So you learned that the hard way. And on this property if we just go back to purchasing this particular property that you're going to buy as a long-term rental, but then Mark with his powers of persuasion convinced you to do Airbnb. The numbers on that work out, like the amount you're going to generate through Airbnb and income, that makes that property worth it. And how different is it than if you were to rent that property out as a long-term rental? Can you give us just a rough, just high-level comparison on some ballpark numbers?
Yeah. So what I've realized is that Canada is very different from the States. And this is why we're looking to invest in the States now. But we're working within a Canadian context, right? So generally with Airbnb, you should be able to do, I don't know, you should be able to at least double your long-term revenue. And so that's gross, right? So because with Airbnb, you're covering utilities and the lawn maintenance and snow and stuff like that. So
you think whatever you were renting that house out for as a long-term rental, you should get it as double.
Yeah, more or less.
So if in today's numbers, if I'm renting out a single family home on the Hamilton Mountain for, I don't know, $2,900 or so, I should be able to, if I just round up to 3,000, I should be able to get 6,000 if I was doing Airbnb on that property.
Yeah.
Yep, give or take. And it depends if you have a duplex or not, right? So one thing I've noticed is that rents lag home prices, right? We've kind of seen that. And then Airbnb prices, or short-term rental prices, I should say, kind of lag rent. So sometimes it's not always a perfect, like,
Sure.
you've got this number, you get that number. Sometimes it's a bit of a lag. But all things considered, you should be, at least in Canada, 70 to 100% premium over long-term rent.
Why do you say in Canada? Because in the US it's even more?
Yeah.
What's that ratio in the US?
It could be 2, 3, 4 times.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
No wonder he has so many Airbnbs down there in Florida. So, and the reason for that is what exactly? Just demand?
Well, so one thing is home prices, right? In Canada,
right.
they've risen so dramatically. That's not
Yeah.
the only thing, but like Hamilton, they were so dramatic of a
Yeah.
rise that it's just, you can't charge.
Yeah, got it.
10
And if
grand a month.
Airbnb rates lag rent rates and rents lag the price,
Yeah.
maybe it catches up, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the US, you have a population that's more predisposed to Airbnb-ing, and it just kind of happens a little faster there. Bigger population, more cities, more vacation spots too, I would imagine, because as great as Hamilton is, and we're fans of Hamilton, if you have them in maybe in Florida or, I don't know, South Texas or Arizona or somewhere, maybe you're going to, or around ski resorts, you're going to do even more.
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of keeping with our theme of like starter homes, nice home in a nice neighborhood. Looking in Tennessee, so you got homes in the $150,000 $200,000 U.S. range that should be able to generate the same income, or at least close to that. Our $800,000 bungalow.
And then down there, you're going to set up, I guess, the right corporate structure. You're going to have to get finance. I don't know if you're going to just take equity from properties here and just buy that property cash there, or you can get financing down there. Have you looked into financing options?
Yep, looked at a few.
And what are you finding?
Well, so I'm asking around, and we're in a few Facebook groups, so we have some sort of kind of warm recommendations, and then a few others. And it's like, okay, look, here's the deal. I'm a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a brand new U.S. corporation with no history or anything like that. I'm not interested in using personal income because we're self-employed. What do you think? And they're like, yeah, come on down. Here's, you got this. You want a construction loan? We'll do that.
But have you done it yet?
I haven't done it.
Okay. So I'm curious. Yeah. You got to keep us posted.
Yeah. The next month or so,
Okay.
I'm hoping we can pick something up.
Okay, cool. We have, and after the recording I can share, we have one contact in Florida. She was a mortgage broker up here in Canada for years and now is down there. So he kind of understands Canadians and Canadian perspective a little bit. But that is in Florida.
Yeah.
But who knows? She might have other contacts for you as well.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there's a lot. Like, people are more comfortable with, whether you're flipping or doing something like that. Just a lot more hard money lenders out there as well.
Oh, totally.
Which to get into a property is perfect. And keep your eyes open. We know there's going to be fees, and
sure.
We've dealt with B lenders in Canada for the past, I don't know how many years, right? Being
fees and balloon
self-employed.
payments at the end of terms.
So we're kind of familiar with some of that stuff already. And, we know we're going to be paying probably 8% for a mortgage. But
8, that's a good rate these days, Mark. I'm just 8%. 8, where are you getting that?
in there.
Yeah. No, okay. So I just want to circle back. We can come back to that. I just want to circle back to the Airbnbs here for a second. So this property's running. You get this thing. You're renting the top and the bottom. The average length of stay would be in Hamilton on this property that we've been talking about would be how long? 3 or 4 days, a week?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because we started out doing the short term. So anywhere, I think I limited it to 3 nights minimum, just because I was getting burnt out with the quick turnover. So I'm like, I need some longer stays, and I thought 3 nights minimum. So yeah, people would stay for 3 nights to a week or two, and we did that maybe the first year, and then we started thinking, okay, maybe we should do some longer term stays. We had a couple of guests ask, would it be okay if I stayed a month? And I was like, yes, please.
Awesome.
A lot less work
At the
for
same
me.
rate?
At the same rate.
Oh.
Maybe with a slight discount, but even still, I'm not going in there cleaning. I'm not doing laundry. I'm not replenishing your coffee pods and all.
So
of
even a
these other
marginal
things.
discount's
Yeah.
worth it. Yeah, okay.
So that's kind of how the book came about. We shifted our focus from short-term stays to midterm stays. So midterm meaning anywhere from a month to less than a year.
And you've done some, like,
Yeah.
so what's the longest Airbnb you've done?
Probably 9 months.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and they were paying well above market.
Did they start with 1 month and then just keep extending?
I think it was. What
think it was a
I
couple
think they
months,
wanted to
right?
stay a couple of months. It was a family that had sold their home in Hamilton with the idea of moving to Australia. They were going to immigrate, so they just needed a place for a couple months before their
Okay,
visas.
and dragged on a little bit.
And then, COVID happened.
Oh, shit. Got
Yeah,
it.
so they stayed for 9 months, which was great for us because as soon as COVID happened, all our short-term bookings disappeared. So we were already doing this midterm model, and we were very thankful that we were because we just seamlessly transitioned into short-term stays to midterm stays.
So are you doing this medium model on other properties now as well?
Yes, we are.
So multiple Airbnbs,
Yeah.
all like this one, duplexed out kind of?
Yeah, some of them are.
Some are
yeah.
some are just single family, straight up one family?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, there's combinations.
Maybe
We
they're
have
all-
one that's like a long-term rental above and a short-term below. That's just the owner's preference. And then some that are just single.
And the
family
tenant
home.
that is long term on the main floor doesn't mind that there's Airbnb tenants
No.
coming and going?
No, it works out very well.
Yeah,
What? Yeah, why is that?
Just they enjoy meeting people.
yeah.
No way.
They're
But
excellent.
you're so lucky.
I know.
Oh my God.
They're very accommodating. They'll help out. They're very welcoming. So it's been a perfect fit.
It's the one thing about like duplexing or legal second suite, whatever you're going to call it,
Yeah.
is that if you have a tenant on the main floor specifically that gets annoyed with the basement tenant, it just turns into
Yeah.
a property from hell.
This-
They start sending you pictures of like the way they're placing the garbage on the curb is incorrectly, and they left the mail in the mailbox too long, and all
Yeah.
these like things. You're like, listen,
noise.
yeah,
That's a big
noise is a big one.
Yeah.
My favorite one on noise ever is when I got a video of a hardwood floor and I didn't have the volume on, and I'm like, why are these people sending me a video of a hardwood floor? But they were videoing the sound because the couple in the young couple in the basement's having sex at like 10 in the morning
Had
while
those
their kids are
complaints.
So and then I turned the volume on. I'm like, oh geez, yeah, I guess there's a party going on down there, and your son or daughter trying to have their Kellogg's cereal or whatever they're having, and anyway, we had to deal with that one. That was a fun one. So you're lucky if you have a tenant, if you're managing a property like that. Wow, that's
I usually would not do a mix. I don't think.
No, it's just the way
worked
that
out
yeah, if it
this
worked,
way.
it worked.
Yeah.
purchased.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would if I would do a long-term rent on the top, I probably wouldn't Airbnb the basement.
And then you said you guys have a mix of long-term rentals, Airbnb. So you are maintaining a mix. Is that at a choice, or just the other ones aren't Airbnb'd
Yeah,
yet?
we just have some clients that are not comfortable with the short-term or mid-term rent.
Got
They
it.
would just
Okay.
like to do the long-term. That's what they know. They're comfortable with that, and we're like, okay, we can manage those for you
Okay.
as well.
And we're not actively looking for those. They came up and
Okay.
Like-
So how are you? I didn't realize you brought up clients and co-hosting a few times now. I didn't realize that this is something you're doing so much of.
Yes.
How are people finding you? This is word of mouth?
Mostly word of mouth. Yes, we are kind of known in our little community, in our church community, our Dutch community, that we're the Airbnb people. And if
Oh,
people
cool.
need a place, ask Mark and Kirsten. Or
If they're buying a place?
yeah, if they're buying a place, we've had somebody, a friend of ours, say, I'm interested in real estate investment. I don't know the first thing about it. Can you guys come with me and look at houses? And you kind of tell me what I need to look for. So we've done that.
And then if you're going to manage it for somebody as an Airbnb, is there a geographical area that you guys will work in?
Yeah, we're the Greater Hamilton area.
Greater
We have
Hamilton.
a couple in Caledonia.
Okay. Brantford?
Burlington.
Yes,
Yeah,
no?
Brantford. I'm twisting her arm a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Powers of
We need to,
persuasion.
you know.
Mark's powers of, yeah.
Yeah.
Kirsten saying no. Mark's saying yes. Okay. No, we'll see where that goes. The Greater Hamilton area.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Wow,
Yeah.
you guys have carved out a nice niche for
Yeah,
yourselves.
it kind of just happened. We never planned it, especially when we first, well, maybe Mark has different ideas, but when we first rented out our
It sounds like he does. By the way he's looking at you when you're answering these questions, he totally does.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was getting into. When we rented out that basement apartment in our primary home, I had no idea that we would, purchase another place or start managing for other people.
And when you
writing
manage
a
for other
book
people,
about
it works for you guys because is it a set fee that you guys
Yeah.
charge?
Yeah,
And
we
you've
do.
kind of worked that out over time because I'm
Yes.
sure you've made mistakes on
Absolutely.
that as well.
Yeah, we've
okay.
made huge mistakes where we're charging a certain amount and we're like, wow, this is way more work.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, being an Airbnb host is a lot of work. I'm not going to lie about
So
that.
then the
It's
focus-
not very passive sometimes.
Yeah, no, this is an
No,
active.
it is.
Real estate investing in general. Remember all those
Yeah.
books when I was younger? It's like passive investing is real estate. And I was so sold on that concept. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I will make passive income with real estate investing. And then Nick and I are driving down, like there's microwaves in my trunk and lawnmowers that are sticking out the back of my Honda Civic.
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
kicking a lawnmower in the trunk of my, when you take the handles down,
Yeah.
and I remember trying to kick it. And I remember thinking, I'm never getting this out of the trunk. Like if I get this in the trunk, I'm just going to get to this property. And I remember cutting the grass, just this one student rental. And I was cutting the grass petrified because I was so scared of the students because, we were new.
Yeah.
And the students started looking out through the blinds in the backyard and I was cutting the grass and I saw them see me and I pretended not to see them. And I was just cutting the grass. Then I knocked on the door and I was like trembling, here's your microwave that we promised you. And by the way, do you have like the missing rent from last? Just a disaster. Just
So
like
familiar.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. One time on a long-term rental, we had to issue an N4 and it was dragging along on a bit. And in Ontario back then, if you mailed it, you had to add a certain amount of
Yes.
days if you mailed the N4. So
think
I'm
you
like,
still
screw-
do.
Yeah. So I'm like, Nick, I'm just going to drive it to the property. I get to the property and I start getting nervous. So I get to the property. I park like a few doors down. This is so ridiculous. Like looking back, this is ridiculous. I look at the house. It doesn't look like anyone's moving in the house. I look at the envelope. I had the N4 and I was like, I forget, am I supposed to stick it to the door or do I put it in the envelope? I'm like freaking out about what to do. And then I get out of the car. I run to the house and I drop it in the mailbox. And I run back to the car and I start the car and I take off. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know even what I was scared of. Now it'd be so different, like, hey, here's the N4, enough of this. I can't take it anymore. Totally. But back then it was just like petrifying, right? So anyway, way off topic. You're just giving me flashbacks. So you learn all these things over time. You're co-hosting. You learn how the co-hosting things go. Word of mouth takes over. That's how you found a lot of co-hosting business and your own networking. It sounds like multiple groups that you're involved in, correct?
Yeah.
And then the idea, what is the focus of the book? So the book is just launching. The book is out now.
Yeah.
And the focus of the book is what? Can you map that? He can come. Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah.
So it's a family business, by the way.
Yeah. He can come in. He can hang out. Yeah, it's not a problem.
So we started with, so first of all, we continually have imposter syndrome, right? Like, who are we to write a book and tell other people about real estate, right? When there's so many, like even coming a rock star, there's so many people with so much experience and knowledge and wisdom. And, but we realized, just looking for a midterm rental in Hamilton, you couldn't find it. So that's why we're like, okay, I think that we're onto something here. And then I couldn't find anything online or anywhere really, anybody talking about midterm rentals. So I'm like, it's an underserved niche, right? And nobody's talking about it or writing about it. So, listening to Rockstar podcasts, you had Julie Broad on from Book Launchers.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of inspiration to be like, why not? Why not write a book? We can do this. So another one, like talking to Kirsten, like, I've been thinking, dear. And she's just like, what?
The powers of
doing
Mark's
now,
persuasion
right?
coming in again. Yeah.
So just started writing, and then it turned into a little bit more than just midterm rentals, but that's kind of the hook of the book, right? Is like, hey guys, you got short term, you got long term, there's a niche in between here, and we've even just since writing the book, we've really seen midterm rentals grow as people realize like it's a lot less work than short term,
Less hassle,
a lot-
same money.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar
Roughly
money.
the same.
Yeah, roughly the same. And then, for long-term landlords, like way more money and a little bit more effort, not that much. So, and the book just kind of grew around that concept. And it's like, well, if I want to explain midterm rentals, I should explain short-term, because you still need that hospitality mindset. If we talk about short-term rentals, we should talk about long-term rentals, because now we're approaching this from our angle as kind of newish investors and writing this for other novice investors, people who might want to kind of go down the same path as us, because we know a lot of people who are, like younger than us couples, starting a family, and, how can
these are very valuable books, by the way. Like you're saying that as starting, by the way, you have tons of experience. You're not like rookie investors here just listening to this. But writing a book from that perspective is hugely valuable, because I find that Nick and I have been involved in real estate in a long time. So I get sucked into this whole world of macroeconomics and interest rates, because I'm like, okay, that's my biggest threat. We've kind of figured out real estate investing for what we need it for. I just need to watch these threats. And sometimes you forget about some of the entry-level beginner stuff that is the critical stuff, like dropping off an N4, or checking off the right things on the Airbnb website so you don't get short-term people.
Yeah.
So I think as you move along your real estate journey, sometimes your voice changes in what you're presenting, and it's hard to go back a little bit, to be frank.
Yeah.
So sharing a book like this at this stage in your evolution is hugely valuable. It's almost like a signpost. Like, here's where we are now. And 10 years from now, you might not be even able to write this book anymore, because you've moved on to who knows what,
Yeah.
So it's valuable that you've documented this at this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing we realized, like someone who's a 10 out of 10, on the real estate scale, for them to talk to somebody who's a 1 out of 10, probably there's not a lot of value being transferred. Because like you said, you're talking about macroeconomic trends and, 30-year gilts and, what's going on with the Bank of England or Italy.
Goddamn central
breaking the
bankers,
EU.
my arch enemies, the central bankers.
I cover that a little bit in the book, but someone who's maybe a 3 out of 10 has a lot more value to impart to that person who's sort of a 1, right? Because they're still sort of in that mindset and have freshly gone through, made all the mistakes.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that just about the imposter syndrome, that comment that you made. I find that like really interesting, because I think that's just so normal in all of us. And it's interesting to also hear you say, rock star and this kind of stuff. Like, I don't know anything about what you're doing. I don't know anything about medium-term rentals. Like I need to be like, I'm the 1 out of 10 on this kind of stuff. And that's why your book would be hugely valuable to me. Like, we don't all know, there's no one can claim that they're a real estate or any expert of any sort in all areas. It's just, it's not even possible, and sometimes your expertise changes over time and you focus on different things, but it's interesting because you're not, just the fact that you brought up imposter syndrome, because I've heard that like so many times over the last 10 years in my life. And it's just fascinating to me that we all have it. It's almost like somebody needs to anoint you so that you feel worthy of presenting the information that you have. And I felt like I needed that at one point in my life too, that like Nick and I needed to be told, like someone like with a wand would come and touch us on the head and say, yes, you are the we bless you with your expertise and we approve of you. And it was, I think it was like, I don't know, 10 years ago that we just got it through our heads. We're like, oh, we don't need anyone to anoint us. We'll just, if we're true to ourselves and we're speaking what we think is the truth in our own integrity, we can have a strong voice and believe in what we're doing and add value to other people. And somehow we kind of managed to get past that. But it is something we all struggle with, Mark. And I'm not saying you struggle with it or anything, but just the fact that you brought it up, I just wanted to comment on it.
Yeah. We have realized though, because we've also talked to a lot of people who are just starting up Airbnbs and just like giving them advice or helping them set it up, not as a business thing or anything. We've done a lot of that over the years. So part of that kind of contributed to our thought that maybe there is some value in actually writing some of this stuff down. Because there's so many people who, I'm embroiled. in the world of real estate and short-term rentals, like we both are. But then, we'll sit down and talk to somebody who's like, Airbnb, I've heard of that. What's that all about? And you're like, what?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like me when someone sits down and talks about like inflation with me. I'm like, really? You don't understand we're getting ripped off? You don't get it? Where have you been hiding? Sit down, let me fill you all in. We're all getting screwed. But on the Airbnb side of things, I also think it's been around, but it's relatively new. Like no one's really claiming 20 years of experience or 30 years of experience, or I've been doing Airbnbs for 50 years. Like this is like a relatively new game. So in the book, what are the biggest things or messages from the book that you've put together that you wanted to make sure you were conveying? Was it the concept of this midterm rental? Is that the big message that you wanted to convey, or the do's and don'ts? What were you trying to solve with the book?
I think, so one message is midterm rentals. That's like the practical message. Like, here's a thing that you can do, right? Whether you're a novice investor or a seasoned investor, there's a valid market here for you to explore. So, give it a try. But the subtext behind the book is like just our journey, right? As a couple with a growing family and venturing into real estate. And I guess the message would be like, if you're sort of in that area, like you can do this too. We're not anything special. We're not brainiacs. We're not rocket surgeons, as I like to say.
Rocket surgeons. I got to use that one. Listen, there's no rocket surgeons over here, okay?
I heard a little while ago, and I don't know if this is true, but I think it probably is on a podcast. Somebody said there's the industry with the most rich, dumb people is real estate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. How does this work? You buy this property and you just hold it for a little bit and you like kind of rent it in a bunch of different styles. Like, oh, students, do you want to rent? Yes. Oh, you family over there, would you like to rent? Yes. Hey, you short-term, midterm people, do you want to rent? Yes. Wow, this kind of works. It's just like I remember describing, you were just talking about how people don't know much of real estate investing. Some investors that had invested for a couple of years didn't know about refinancing, and Nick and I were blown away. Like we never talk about it because we just assumed that people understood once you built up some equity in a property, you could go back to the bank and get a credit line on that to access some of that equity, or you can get a new mortgage and access some of that equity. And we were explaining it to these people, and for years they had held a couple properties and they had tons of equity and they were just completely blown away. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, how we have failed you. We have not articulated this sooner. They just thought they hit the jackpot. Like, we can go to the bank and access some of that equity in the property. I'm like, yeah, you totally can. But anyway, sorry, we got off track. I don't even know where we were there, Mark. But
so originally the working title was the Stay-at-Home Mom's Guide to Real Estate. And we, for marketing and for other reasons, we kind of moved away from that. But that was the original impetus for the book. Really was like, because Kirsten had done all the early work and all the legwork for our short-term rentals, really this was kind of on her, and it was a lot about her journey and like also mine. But if you're a stay-at-home mom, here's something you can do, right? You can house hack, right? You could rent out your basement if you have a basement apartment. If you don't have one, get one. And a little bit about our journey, but really sort of from Kirsten's point of view. That was meant to be one of the themes as well.
Yeah, and I think we talk about it in the book too, just developing that mental toughness, because it is kind of intimidating when you think about going into, like, just even buying a family home was intimidating for me.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And then, now in buying an investment property and then Airbnb, like, it's a lot. And I think that's what we've really learned over the years, that some things are hard and you're going to be outside your comfort zone.
And it's good.
And it's okay. And you will get through. And I mean, I remember when we first started doing the Airbnb, I was so afraid of bed bugs. And maybe as a long term.
You had to deal with them
Yes.
yet? Yeah, same.
So now that I've dealt with it, I have a great exterminator.
Oh, do you?
Rolodex,
okay. And they can get rid of them in one shot?
He's pretty good.
Oh, powder? Is he using a powder or heat?
He also powder and heat. We've done both. But now I feel like, okay, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
Like we've just had it in one of our long-term renters. We had a new tenant move in. They brought in bed bugs. So they let me know. And I was like, okay. We'll deal with it.
We had bed
I've
bugs
done
in
that
a
before.
student rental, and I had to get into one of the bedrooms when they were back home, and I just threw out all their clothes. I communicated to them. I said, sorry, everything's going. I don't know if I have your permission or not. I'm throwing everything here. I went to the seams of the mattress and I pushed on the seams, and the bed bugs from the seams, the stitching were coming up through, and in the baseboards of the bedroom.
Yeah.
And it was a bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
Like and Nick was not involved on this. Oh no, he didn't. He wasn't with this property with me. I can't even blame him. Sorry, this was my own fault. I like to blame him for most of our problems. And I think I've shared this before. Anyway, I went home and I had to I totally stripped naked to go into my own house because I was like, Carol, I won't bring these clothes in, and I'm just running straight to the shower here, and it was gross, throwing it all out. But the exterminators, the first ones, didn't do the job. They heated
really?
They said they had some heating thing. We had to stay at the house, I feel, for like a day or two. I can't remember. And then they came back with some white powder that they had smuggled in from the U.S. that apparently at the time we didn't have here. But they, had it in some way, and they put this white powder around, and that took care of it. But that was probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. So that's good if you have an exterminator.
Yeah, and we talk about that too, having a great team, finding those people that are dependable and going to get the job done. So an exterminator, a realtor, a lawyer, a handyman, those kind of things. If you have those people on your team, then I think you'll go a long way.
A couple more questions for you. Has refinancing a property as an Airbnb been difficult, or are the banks just calling it a rental property?
Yes, they don't.
Yeah, it's a
so
rental.
We did do that with our Airbnb, and they were not interested in the Airbnb side of it. And we kind of did.
It's like a student rent. I think you're in student rental land where it's like they don't want to touch you.
They don't really know about it.
Yeah, they don't know how to deal with it. They have no
into
process for it.
Yeah. The States is different though that way again.
Yeah, again, the States, they're like short-term rental, bring it on. Yeah.
You guys are leaving Canada for sure. I can just hear it in your voices at this point. You're basically 1 foot out the door. Let's face it. Hamilton, where's that? We're gone.
We were just in Michigan and we're just like,
Yeah. Yeah, Nick was in Florida here, and I was like, hey, it's kind of getting colder here. I just broke out my jacket. He's like, I'm not coming back. Forget it. Okay, so financing, can be a little bit tricky. The other thing is payments from Airbnb. Is that once a month? Like, how does that work? For money collection, that's all collected through Airbnb. Remember, I'm the 0 out of 10 on your book. How does it happen?
This is what I love about Airbnb. I'm not the one collecting rent. So there's none of that awkwardness if somebody hasn't paid their rent and you're like, I don't want to
excuse me,
bug you, but
here's your N4 as I sprint to my car.
So that's all done through Airbnb, and they will pay with a credit card. So there's a little bit of security there.
Yeah.
And then Airbnb just pays you directly into my bank account.
Once a month?
No,
or
it depends on the stay. So.
Oh, okay. So right after the stay.
Yeah, the day after check-in, then I'll get the money. If it's a longer stay on Airbnb, they'll just pay monthly. They'll break up the payments.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of nice. I don't.
And ever any problems with Airbnb that you've had to try to go to Airbnb for support for?
Maybe one time that I can think of. But
do you recall what that was? That doesn't matter.
No,
it was a booking setting thing.
Yeah, there was something wrong with the setting on the booking. Nothing to do with the guest at all.
Okay.
We've had issues with guests. Where we've had to make a claim. They broke the toilet. I don't know how.
Don't ask.
No.
Yeah. Don't ask.
But they were very upfront about it. They're like, we broke it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Half?
Oh, yeah.
Not quite, but almost.
Well, hey, maybe it was some hot food the night before. Who knows what was going on?
But no, I have to say 99% of the time, we don't have issues with guests.
Okay. Are you using other platforms other than Airbnb?
Yeah.
And what are your favorites?
We use booking.com as well. I find that we get a lot more international travelers through that website.
Interesting. Okay.
And it has worked out very well for us using both Airbnb and booking.com. VRBO or Vrbo is another one, but I haven't gotten that much traffic from that one.
Okay. We have a few people using it, and it seems like you either love it or I don't know why. It's like a very hit and miss. I don't know if it's by area, but some people just swear by it and other people don't.
I feel like it's by area.
Okay.
For whatever reason. We have we're in contact with other hosts in the States, and they use VRBO almost exclusively, and it kind of depends on where you are geographically.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other big area that's growing for us as well is direct bookings. So we have just a little website where
Smart.
someone wants to book, they just go there, and again, credit card payment. Although, I mean, you do handle a lot of this as well, not just Airbnb, but
Yeah.
Great. You
whether
can start
it's
taking Bitcoin.
sometimes.
Sorry, Kirsten. Sorry.
know.
I apologize for that. But Mark can start accepting Bitcoin and just fill you in with his powers of persuasion, explain to you why this is the greatest
I'm
thing
the
ever.
first one that bought Bitcoin.
Whoa,
Us.
whoa. Awesome.
So there you
Awesome.
go.
For my
Awesome.
birthday.
Yeah.
Oh, no
I'm
way.
like, what do I get
Really?
him? I have no idea.
Oh my God, that's the best
I'm like,
gift.
I'll buy him some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh
how
my
that
God,
started.
that's an amazing gift. That is approved right there.
But
So the
just-
direct booking smart.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's an area, like if you are an Airbnb host, you really want to work on, right? Airbnb and Booking and Vrbo, they're all marketing platforms, right? So it's just a great way to do your marketing. You pay your cut to them, but you can't depend on it, right? If tomorrow Google says, hey, we're going to get into the short-term rental business, and you're dependent on Airbnb for all your business, what happens? Like, it's still a big chunk of our business, but that's something we encourage other hosts to do, is like start growing your own brand, build your own email list.
Smart.
And yeah.
Yeah, what happens to when we get to the world of like central bank digital currencies and Mark says something crazy online and then Airbnb finds out and says, well, you know what? We saw on Twitter that you said this about so-and-so and we're shutting down your Airbnb. I know that sounds like a stretch, but it doesn't sound like that far of a stretch anymore.
It's
You're
not
feeding
that
right
far of a
into my,
stretch.
Yeah. So to have the direct, we've always done that with our own marketing. Even for this business, we've always said we need to own the marketing. We need to own the email list. Like we'll use Instagram, we'll use these platforms, but we still collect mailing addresses.
Yeah.
Like we still want people's mailing address, even though people move. We want the ability to mail to people as well because we're like, forget it. Let's say this is maybe our worst case planning situation, but we're like, if we have people's email addresses, we own that. And if we have their mailing addresses, we own that. And then we can communicate with our client base as we see fit.
Yeah.
We can send out an email right now. That's still quote unquote allowed. And we can send out mail. So, we are controlling it versus building up things. We had our YouTube channel go down like 5 or 6 years ago. About a week before, I asked somebody on our team, I'm like, you know what? I just got a weird feeling. Just back up all our videos. Because we had probably 5 years of videos on YouTube. They backed up all our videos. YouTube goes down. No fault of our own. What happened is they had something, a social media platform called Google Pages or Works. It was some business thing. They were trying to compete with Instagram. I even forget what it was. And they merged our YouTube channel with another account we had. And when they did the merge, I guess the business account trumped my personal account, which where all the videos were held. And they just deleted all the videos. And you can't get in touch with anyone at YouTube.
No.
And the worst part is when people went to our YouTube channel, it said copyright violation, or so it gave like an incorrect reason as to why all our videos were down. And then we had all the backups, so we reloaded them up onto this new page. And I put in an appeal to YouTube. 6 months later, they reinstated everything. Didn't send me any communication at all, no reason, nothing. Just 6 months later, all our videos pop up, which then I had to go delete because we had like duplicate videos on two different pages. So I just think that's smart.
Yeah.
What you're kind of advocating for with Airbnb hosts, build your own webpage out, try to get direct payments. You'll probably get some repeat clients even.
We've got so many repeat clients. Yeah.
Yeah, and that works very well in the vacation rental model. If you've got more of a multi-purpose, like urban kind of starter home thing, not as much, but there's still potential there. So it's still worth doing.
Yeah, got it. And I guess as your portfolio grows, you never know because, once you get into doing other areas and stuff, people might just like you. They know what they're getting. They're comfortable with you. So they will kind of look to you first.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like well-established brands in the States where, and they're very local, like could be North Carolina mountains or, parts of Florida.
Yeah, and they're kind of owning it.
Yeah, they have a brand and people are loyal to that brand. So some of these folks don't even use Airbnb anymore because they have enough demand to satisfy their existing and growing portfolios.
Do you guys look at, do bylaws come into play with what you're doing? How do you look at, do you just always keep aware of them? Can you talk to that point a little bit?
Yeah, we just try to be aware of what's happening in whatever region we're working in. So Hamilton, there's been a lot of talk about the city, cutting down, like doing Toronto style restrictions, which is pretty restrictive. So, we've been talking with other Airbnb hosts, Airbnb themselves, organized a meeting just to get hosts together and talk about it and kind of
Advocate
advocate
at
with
City
the
Hall.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually been sort of pushed off for a little bit now. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, you kind of keep the pressure on. And we like markets where there's already regulation. So where we're looking in the States, there's already regulation. So it's a known, it's not a risk factor.
Is that why you brought up Tennessee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the Memphis area, you're required to get a license. You got to pay an occupancy
I feel
tax.
like you
and
fit
all that
right in
stuff.
Memphis. You look like a country singer. I
tell
don't
you
know,
what.
Doesn't he look like he would just like
He gets off
you got a
the
pickup
phone.
truck? You got a pickup truck and Mark, and you guys are good to
He
go.
has a pickup truck.
Yeah.
He got off the phone with a realtor down in Tennessee, and he starts talking to me. I reckon. I'm like,
no. Kirsten, you're
like,
Kirsten.
oh man,
Kirsten.
here we go.
Yeah, you're not having that. You weren't having that. Shut that down.
All right, listen, we're getting a pickup truck and a
Cowboy
Cadillac.
hat. Cowboy hat.
It's gonna
This
fit
guy?
right in.
Maybe.
He's
Yeah.
gonna love it.
What has the beard always been a thing with Mark?
No, that's
No.
been the last maybe 2 years. He's
Yeah.
always had some kind of facial hair.
Oh, really?
But
Because I feel like
really
now,
taken
as
off.
far as I'm concerned, I feel like he's known for the beard now. Now
That
it's
is
like a thing.
what
I can't ever
he's
get rid
trying
of
The
it.
beard's
Yeah.
a separate entity.
It's-
The beard is
It's branding.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
What else? Actually, what else have I not asked you about the
well,
book
just
or Airbnb in general?
Kind of speaking to the regulations, we do let our clients know that. So we've had a lot of people ask, "Oh, I want an Airbnb in St. Catharines," and we'll be very upfront with them. Like, these are the regulations.
What are they in St. Catharines? right now?
I think it's more or less the same. That well,
Well, you have to
Yeah.
live there, so it's got to be your primary
Okay.
yeah.
residence.
So you
and
can
there's-
rent a basement.
Can't remember. There's a
apartment.
restriction.
And that's how a lot of
on
these
days.
communities seem to
You
be
can
dealing
only
with it.
rent.
Yeah, some. I mean, there's a lot that are just moving to regulation. That's what we would prefer. Regulate it. So make sure it's safe, right? Make sure you've got good hosts and good landlords, whatever you want to call it. The same rules you would have for like a long-term landlord. Just apply that to your short-term rentals as far as like fire regulations and things
Sure.
like that, right? Get an occupancy tax. I'm fine with that, right? Let's contribute back to the city in a sort of tangible, taxable way. Have the regulations, and you can even cap, like a lot of places will cap the number of short-term rentals. So there's X amount, and then
You can apply for a permit or whatever.
yeah, and if the max has been reached, you're on the waiting list. So I think that's a reasonable way to go about it, because if you look at what short-term rentals bring just to Hamilton, right? The amount of people that people spend in the economy. I can't remember. I don't have the numbers at the tip of my finger, but it was something like $120 a day or whatever that people will spend in the local economy that they may not if they're in a hotel, right? Because now they can go buy groceries.
Yeah.
They don't have to necessarily go out to eat. Just supporting the local economy in numerous different ways. And there's been a few studies done that show as well, if there's no short-term rentals in a market, you reduce the number of visitors to that market because people will come because there are short-term rentals available. And I think for us, that's true. If we travel somewhere, I'm not looking for a hotel. I'm going to look for, and I've done it, we've tailored our travel to where there were available Airbnbs as opposed to hotels. I don't want to take 4 kids and us and, maybe like a parent or two to a hotel and get like 3 hotel rooms, right? That sucks. I want to get a nice house where we can all relax and have a vacation.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We're going to, there's a small group of us, a bunch of us going to Portugal on Sunday. And it's like a typical kind of, this is like just a guy's trip where it's a disaster in the organization. But where we're going in Portugal, one of the guys was there in the summer. He's like, oh, there's tons of Airbnbs. It's easy to book. So we literally have no plan. We don't have a place to sleep on the first night yet. We leave on Sunday. Today's Wednesday. So we're just going to get on the airplane. And he's like, no, I got it. I'll just book us an Airbnb. And there's tons of them in that area that gave him comfort. He speaks Portuguese, but he's like, it's English everywhere. It doesn't really matter. So we're going to an area south of Lisbon where it's exactly what you said. I don't think we would have been going if he didn't have the comfort of knowing there was a lot of kind of short-term rental availability. We would have stayed maybe in a hotel in Lisbon instead of going to check out some of these smaller areas and just south. And we're just going to book it same day. He's done that in the summer. He's like, we're just literally going to show up You guys are both staring at me and I'm having doubts now. The way you guys are both looking at me, I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't going to work. People have been asking us, they're like, what's the plan? And I'm like, we don't really know. We're just landing in Lisbon. And then we're going to sleep somewhere. We're a bunch of homeless guys that don't know where they're going.
If you plan ahead, you can get some really cool spaces.
Yeah,
right?
we're
We've
the
looked in Europe and specifically like around Sintra in Portugal, and like you can get like a castle. Right?
He's
Like a
talking
castle.
about, yeah. And you know what? I'm not, this is just a running joke between us. I'm not organizing this trip purposely because I sometimes will organize stuff. And I'm like, listen, we'll have it your way. I want to see how you live. Let's see how this works. Okay. Let's see how this goes.
Airbnb is all about experience now. It used to be just a place to rest your head. And now it is definitely, like Mark said, you could rent a castle. We rented a houseboat in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
Just cool things like that you would never do otherwise.
Yeah, and people wouldn't put them on the market if there wasn't a way to do it as a short-term or a midterm kind of rental. Are you guys still taking on people and co-hosting for people and managing?
Yeah. The business is still growing.
Okay,
right?
so how do anyone listening to this that wants to find you? Do you want to share a URL? How would they find you?
Yeah, I guess joyhill.ca.
Okay.
joyhill.ca. That's the property management.
Joyhill.ca.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll link to that into the show notes of this episode. So if you're listening, you can go to rockstarinnercircle.com/podcast. You can find Mark and Kirsten's episode, and joyhill.ca will be linked there. And then the book, I have Mark and Kirsten.ca.
That's right.
So we'll link to that as well, to the book, available on Amazon. You can find it there as well. You, Me, and Airbnb.
That's right.
Correct. You guys should be really proud of this. This is like a big deal. So congratulations that you've done this, and I'm glad you pushed through and got some of this on paper, and you've done it. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, we want to thank you and the whole team at Rockstar as well, because really, like, without having become Rockstar members, I don't think the book or a lot of this stuff would have, even maybe starting the property management business. Kirsten, 8 months pregnant, like that kind of a funny story. I know we're running out of time.
No, sure. Yeah.
Mark's like, let's start a property management business. I'm 8 months pregnant. Sure, let's do it. And the first client I think that we landed had an Airbnb. They wanted us to rent out, and I was showing some potential guest the place, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to reschedule. I'm in the hospital in labor, so if we can do this Friday, that would be great.
Listen, I have some priorities right now. I can't get there at the moment.
I want to be there.
You know what? But give me like 7 hours, maybe 8 hours, and I'll be right over. There might be an additional person with me.
Yeah. But this is how we've kind of done it. Like, kids in tow, it's just kind of crazy. Like you were saying, is shoving a lawnmower in the back of your car. Like,
that's how we all do it. There's no,
stuff.
yeah. I think there's this illusion when you're younger or beginning something new, when you look at other people and you're just like, they have it all figured out. Like, I mean, look at how much they have on the go. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, it's always just a shit show.
Yeah.
And everyone's just kind of trying to survive. And you can't put processes in like you guys have done with your properties to make things better. But generally, it's always evolving.
Well, you learn as you go.
Yeah. Very cool. And listen, I just want to share something as well. And as part of Rockstar, we kind of have like a Telegram group that some Rockstar members are part of, where I find it really interesting because a lot of sharing goes on in there, and contacts and information back and forth. And I really want to thank you, Mark, because you participate in that so well and are always offering and contributing to that. And Kirsten, you might be as well. I'm not always there, so I don't see it, but I notice Mark whenever I do pop in. I know Mark's always offering stuff, and I really think that's helpful, because I think that if there's a group of us together that are all supporting each other, we can kind of lift all of ourselves up a little bit and have each other's backs and kind of give each other the pat on the back and the confidence and the anointing, that yes, you can do this and you are authorized to speak your mind on this particular subject, right? So thank you for that, Mark. It's a two-way street. So when you share about Rockstar, also the way you're contributing back, that's really meaningful to Nick and I don't think we envisioned that when we first started this, and it's the best part to see kind of this kind of strange little community that's kind of helping itself is awesome. So thank you. And we're proud to kind of like share your book and have you guys here. Really, thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy with all the stuff that you have booked, Airbnbs, growing family, all this stuff going on. So thanks for doing this, guys. Anything else that you wanted to share?
Just thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're just, so we try to live lives of gratitude, right? So and that's a big part of, whether it's a Telegram group or writing the book or whatever we do, just being grateful. And and we're so glad that we can find a group, Rockstar, where that works well, because certain groups it just doesn't work, right? People are takers. A lot of people are takers, right? But this is one of those I think groups where that just works so well. So we're just we're blessed to have found you guys in this whole group.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Keep going.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.